Joe Biden gave a speech recently, and I want to take a look at a few moments from it. The first is just so good. He calls out Republicans who criticize him and his infrastructure bill as socialist, as they do with everything that involves federal spending, but then will ask and beg for the infrastructure projects or spending to go towards their district, which is hilarious. So take a look at this.
A report that came out, CNN, it says, Republicans call Biden infrastructure program socialism. And then they ask for the money. And it goes through all of Republicans, the most conservative Republicans, who call it socialism, and how they're asking for it. A guy named Paul Gosar, he's written 3 separate letters.
I also love that he pronounced his name wrong. That was hilarious. Paul Gosar.
To the administration, asking for projects in his district. He says it enhanced the quality of life, that ease congestion, boost the economy. Voted against it, says it's all socialism. Go down the list. Kentucky Representative Andy Barr, the biggest socialist agenda. 3 different projects he wants, citing the importance of the safety and growth of his district. Rand Paul, I can go down the list, look it up. Socialism. I didn't know there were that many socialist Republicans. Think about it. I'm serious.
That's so good. Yes. So often. And it's kind of enraging because it's standing in the way of people getting significant help and the government actually working for people in the way that it should. But it's silly in a way, while also enraging, to see Republicans, just to try to politically damage a Democrat, call every form of government spending socialism and every action by the government under a Democratic administration socialism, when then, in this case, they'll turn around and ask for the help from the federal government in their district. They'll ask for projects that were laid out, or for projects to be laid out and implemented in their districts for their constituents. But I thought you said it was socialism. I thought it was the worst thing ever. I thought that Biden was a commie. Why are you asking him to help you out with these things? You know, it's so fascinating. But then also, they don't understand that if you call this thing socialism, that means you need to call everything socialism. And if you're saying that in a negative sense, then that means you think all of these incredibly popular things are negative. So an example is, oftentimes, if I say, I think we should have universal health care, immediately, socialism, is the response that I get. And the fascinating thing about it is Medicare for All is one of the proposals of universal health care that got pretty popular. And so in that, you can already see the contradiction. Medicare for all. We already have Medicare. So when does it become socialism? When people from 65 plus get health care covered by the government? 60 plus, because I guess Medicare 65 plus isn't socialism, but if I brought that down to 50 plus, would it be socialism now or not? It would just be Medicare for 50 plus. Okay. What if I brought it down to everyone 0 and up? Right? It's just Medicare for everybody. And there's not really a response to that because they're never going to say, oh yeah, Medicare is socialism and it's terrible and we need to get rid of it because it's so incredibly popular. But whenever there's any new proposal that they want to slap down, then it's horrible, communism coming for your kids. And I've never understood that argument. It seems so dishonest, but I like that he called it out there. So then here's him touting the economic successes under his administration.
We're proving that our best days are ahead of us, not behind us. Just look at today's jobs report. Our economy created 263,000 jobs last month. That's 10 million jobs since I've come into office. That's the fastest job growth at any point of any president in all of American history. Historic progress. The unemployment rate remains at historic low.
So, true. A lot of people will say two things when you bring up anything about the economy and Biden. The first is, well, inflation. True. But also inflation is happening worldwide. And you have to understand, coming out of a pandemic, you're gonna have, where the entire economy came to a screeching halt, you're gonna have negative effects afterwards. You just are. You just are. And if you believe, which this is true to an extent, that the inflation was caused by COVID times spending of the government, which is true plus other factors, then you have to understand a lot of that spending was done while Trump was still president. So are you blaming Trump for that? No, it's just Biden. And again, inflation is worldwide. Again, these are effects that of course you're going to see whenever you have a massive economic downturn because of something like a pandemic. But in light of that, or taking that into consideration, it's pretty incredible that we were able to rev back up the jobs market so quickly. Like he said, fastest job growth in American history, 10 million jobs under him. Of course, we were going to get back a lot of jobs because people were able to go back to work after the lockdowns and stuff ended. But we got all the way back to historic lows in unemployment, which is incredible. That didn't have to happen. We could have gotten some job growth and gone back to like a mediocre level. But instead we got all the way back down to super, super low unemployment, which is good. And I just think recognizing the real realities of the economic situation is important. Even though I understand when there are rising costs and high inflation, all that type of stuff, it's hard to see the positives. I get that. I really do. And then you have to understand what caused what, who's to blame for what, and just be honest about that. So, interesting there. And then finally, responding to the handful of Republicans who call the January 6th rioters patriots.
Folks, we talk about democracy, whether it's at risk. Well, democracy is at risk in most places when the only definition of whether you win, you either have to win the election or it's been stolen. When in fact you have, in fact you're in a situation where, a group of people attack the Capitol like we've never seen, smash down the doors, go after people, 3 cops end up dying, so on and so forth. And they're referred to as patriots? Patriots? That's democracy? Folks,
Yeah, so the two important parts there, the fact that anyone would call them patriots, people who broke down the doors of the Capitol trying to go after politicians and caused all that ruckus, is wild. But then also, more importantly, what was the intention of that? To prevent a lawful transition of power. That's why they went to storm the Capitol, because they thought the election was being stolen, so they thought they could prevent that from happening. And in reality, they were just attempting to prevent a free and fair election from having the outcome properly go forth. And so that's scary for democracy, where now you have a bunch of people who believe that either their person wins or the election was stolen. You can't have a functioning democracy with that. That's very, very scary, as we talk about so often on this show. But I like that Biden's sticking to it, continuing to remind people of that fact, because it is so important.